You made it to the Go Commando Show with Fred Galvin. On our new mission, we contend with the naked truths of health, leadership, and overcoming adversity. Now it's time to Go Commando.
Good afternoon, Lynn. How are you?
Doing great.
Thank you for coming on the Go Commando Show. And we would like to just ask several questions. Lynn is the president and chief executive officer of the American Royal Association. And today we had the privilege of interviewing some of the youth rodeo riders, and it was very, very exciting, especially with all the diversity of events that you have. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the American Royal's long-term presence in Kansas City and how you give back to the city as well as through education, scholarship, and competition.
Well, the American Royal is a nonprofit organization. Just a little bit about us more broadly. We've been based in the Kansas City region since 1899.
Wow.
And we provide opportunities for youth and adults to compete. So they compete at our pro rodeo, which you were at our youth invitational rodeo today. They also compete at our livestock show, our horse shows, and at our World Series of Barbecue, which is the world's largest barbecue competition. Those events, as well as our sponsors and our donors, allow us to provide over $1 million a year in scholarships and support our ag education programs. So our mission, we're actually a 501c3. So we're a nonprofit, and our mission is to impact the future of agriculture. So a lot of people know us for the barbecue. A lot of people know us maybe for the rodeo, but broadly at the American Royal, we're focused on impacting the future of agriculture.
Yes. I saw today they had almost 1,000 children from the local schools and went around and saw all the different events that they have for them. That is very important that people understand how agriculture is such a huge part of our community here in Mid-America and how we're doing it ethically and efficiently.
Mm-hmm. The program that you were mentioning is our largest education program. It's a school tours program. Each year, towards the end of September, we have close to 6,000 elementary school kids that are bused down to the American Royal as one of the best field trips in Kansas City. And so today we had about 1,000 kids from a 100-mile radius. They came to the American Royal and they learned about agriculture, but they learned in a way that was fun and interactive and that we hope inspires and cultivates some dreams in the future. Many of these kids may not have seen an animal up close or didn't realize that there's a career path for them with drone technology and monitoring field crops. And so today is about impacting the future of agriculture. And then those same kids will watch the Youth Invitational Rodeo each day. And the Invitational Rodeo is a very unique event. We have applications from kids all over the country to compete at our Invitational Rodeo. We select the best, the ones that have the highest grade point averages, the ones that perform the best in the arena, and those that do the most in the community. We choose the best. They come to the American Royal this year from 9 different states, and they compete in a big stage. So it's set for the pro rodeo, but it's for the youth. And they are competing for scholarship money. So the elementary school kids that are here for the school tours are in the stands watching kids that are maybe the same age or older competing and cultivating dreams. And they are competing for scholarship money to further their career maybe in agriculture.
Yes, earlier this year, it was at a volunteer event for the American Royal Rodeo where I was able to witness yourself and members of the American Royal Rodeo staff award some of these scholarships. What is an example of how a scholarship has had a life-changing impact on one of the youth's lives that you're aware of?
Mm-hmm. So each year we give about 90 scholarships, individual scholarships. They can come in the form of an earned scholarship, maybe at the youth rodeo. They win the barrel racing. It could also come from a horse show. Maybe they win a class in a horse show. It could also come based upon an application process like the Royal Scholars. That is our largest scholarship program. Each year, we award $2,500 to kids that compete from all over the country for these scholarships. Another example, which will kind of get to your point of impacting people's lives, we have something called the Junior Premium Livestock Auction. So the last 2 weeks of October, we'll have kids come in from 31 states and show livestock. Those that are judged to be the best may be chosen for the live auction. And at that live auction, we have donors and civic and business leaders from Kansas City that come and buy the animals. They may donate the meat to charity. That happens a lot of the times. Last year, we had the second place winner. We call them the reserve champion, was a girl named Macy that was based in Iowa. And one of our business leaders purchased her animal. The animal was purchased for $200,000. Now, a portion of that goes to the American Royal for our education programs, but a portion goes back to Macy to cultivate her dreams and to essentially pay for her a portion of her college education. The grandfather of Macy waited until the end of the auction that night and went up to that businessman and said, "I'm the grandfather of Macy, and I just want you to know that you have changed my family's life." He said, "It's been my dream for my granddaughter, who's been interested in agriculture, to come back to the family farm. And what you did tonight allows her to go to college and get an agriculture degree and come back and carry on our family farm." And he wanted this business person to know how much he had impacted his life and generations to come. So that's about as good as you can get in terms of what we do at the American Royal and trying to create a path for the future and create a path for these kids that are interested in agriculture.
Yes, it really is incredible, that legacy. And I know personally my grandfather worked down here in the stockyards as a butcher a long time ago, and it's very interesting now. And if you were able to describe the decision points in the move that American Royal is now planning here in a few years, move from Kansas City, Missouri, where it all started, and it's been for 118 years, over across the state line into Kansas City, Kansas, and what led to that?
We have really great leaders at the American Royal that serve on our board of directors. There is the role of the chairman of the board, which is a very, very important role to the American Royal. Going back to 2005, so 12 years ago, the American Royal was here in Kansas City, was flourishing much like it is today, and there was a gentleman by the name of Neil Patterson that was the chairman of the board that year. And he had spent time visioning what the future could look like for the American Royal. He also had past chairmen like Brian Beaver and others that had surrounded him, and it started a process of saying, what could we be in the future? Because right now we have about 250,000 square feet, and we are in buildings that are leased buildings. So we rent from the city of Kansas City.
Right. And
we have a great relationship with Kansas City. But we're really out of room. We're really out of room in terms of all of our programming, in terms of the demand for our programming. And so Neil Patterson, going back 12 years ago, had a vision for our future and about being able to have an agriculture education center and have multiple arenas so that you could have simultaneous horse shows and you could have events all year round, not just in a 12-week season. And so starting that process back then, and even before then, there was a lot of energy around planning what we wanted in the future. And that went on for multiple years. There was also a lot of discussion with Kansas City, Missouri, with other communities around the area of what our future looked like and where would be the location to allow us to fulfill our mission. And I started at the Royal about 2 years ago. So a lot of the work and the discussions about our future, the design, a lot of that, was really had before I started. So what I can say is that Kansas, the state of Kansas, with the Governor Brownback, as well as the Secretary of Agriculture, Jackie McClaskey, really recruited us. They saw Governor Brownback was in FFA. He was actually the FFA chapter at one point in Kansas and grew up in FFA. And he saw He understood the American Royal and the potential for the American Royal, as does Jackie McClaskey. So they truly recruited us. Found a place for us just 12 miles down the road, not very far from here, in the Village West area, and put a package together to entice us to relocate. The reality of the situation is we're landlocked here. We rent our facilities, and the city had some interest from a private developer to purchase Kemper. And so when that all came to fruition, now we only use Kemper Arena. We had only used Kemper Arena for one of our horse shows. You know, we're all of our events happen here in Hale Arena, with the exception of one of our horse shows. And so when Kemper Arena then was contemplated to sell to a different firm, it became very apparent that we needed to either find a way to build on here in this landlocked area, or we needed to move to be able to reach more kids and fulfill our mission. And so with the recruitment of the state of Kansas and the recruitment of the unified government, we announced our intent to relocate last year. We've been in a planning phase since then. We have been working with architects. We've been spending a lot of time benchmarking and looking at other facilities around the country, that learning from what's gone well, learning from what they would change. And we're kind of in the final stages of architecture right now for a purpose-designed facility. It will be an agriculture, education, and events center. So what you've seen today, Fred, with the school tours, with the Youth Invitational Rodeo, with the Pro Rodeo Slack tonight, that's going to be a typical day in the new American Royal. It won't be just confined to 1 week a year, or one performance a year, or 3 performances over 1 weekend in September. Our vision is to be the national platform for agriculture, and to have agriculture events and education programs year-round. This week, we'll have 6,000 kids that will come through the doors and learn about agriculture. We want those school tours to be every day of the week in our Ag Education Center. So we are designing the facilities. We have land that we've identified, that we have a contract on, and it is our goal to start construction in the next 6 months. We would plan to be in our new facility, we would estimate in 2020, because it takes time to build a complex like where we are today. It's a very complicated structure with arenas and public facilities and museum space and concession space. And so we're being very purposeful in our design for these facilities. But the vision has been kind of the same all along, and that's to be the national platform for agriculture.
And the location you decided is near the Kansas Speedway.
It is near the Kansas Speedway. It's on land that's adjacent to the Kansas Speedway in that Village West area.
So greater access and visibility than currently. I know our city's residential areas is not quite as focused here at this location. So that's what I feel is a great pivot to an area that's growing to the west with the residential areas in Kansas City, in Metro Kansas City.
This has been a great location for us for 118 years. It really has. There's so much history here with the Kansas stockyards, and it's been a really great location for us. And the reality is we're 12 miles down the road. Right. So we have a lot of out-of-town guests that come to the American Royal to show animals, to compete at our horse shows. And so, whether they stay at a downtown hotel or they stay in a hotel near Village West, it's still kind of the same area and location for them. We're excited about the new location. We think it will have great transportation access. We think it will be in a shopping and entertainment district, to where when they're coming and staying for 4 to 5 days, they'll have a lot of activities in that area as well. And it's also close to the airport. And so there's a lot of positives for that location specifically. But I think a lot of people may talk about this as a Missouri-Kansas thing, and the American Royal is a national organization. Many people know us for the barbecue here in Kansas City. I mean, when I started here, so many of my friends and neighbors said, "Oh, that's great. You're going to be working on the barbecue." And yeah, that's true. But we have a lot of other programs too. And so, the reality is that we have a lot of people that come in from all over the country to compete at our shows. And so this new location is going to provide just a great venue for families and for tourists and for the local community too.
Yes. I know growing up as a youth here in Kansas City and having our family compete in the American Royal Rodeo, there was a different bit of a style, more of the dressage and some of the jumping events. And now it seems, after coming back to Kansas City for quite a long while, now we have much more excitement and adventure with some of the rodeo events. What led to that change, and where do you see that going into the future as far as, is this similar to mixed martial arts where people are just loving that thrill of the old rodeo and that's coming back, or what is your vision of the rodeo?
Our Pro Rodeo is Kansas City's only PRCA rodeo. That's the Pro Rodeo Cowboy Association. That's our sanctioning body. And so the events that we have at our rodeo today, that we've had for probably a decade, are really governed by the PRCA. They're very similar to the events you would see in most major rodeos around the country. I'm not sure of the changing, shifts in terms of the events, but people like to see a good thrill-filled rodeo. They do. They love to see the bulls. They love to see the saddle broncs. How long can they do an 8-second ride?
Right.
How fast can those barrel racers make it around the barrels and around the obstacle course? I mean, that's what people come out for. Sure, they also love mutton busting. Who doesn't love seeing a 6-year-old ride a sheep all the way across the arena? So that's really rodeo today. Our horse shows offer a lot of what you had described before. So whether that's the hunter jumper show, or quarter horse shows, or even the saddlebred shows, seeing those other styles of riding, we see as our horse shows have continued to grow in interest. And so it could be that the horse shows of before, or of today, are really more indicative of what you saw growing up from a rodeo perspective.
Yes. And Lynn, your career progression has really set you and the American Royal Rodeo up for success as your position as the CEO and the president. What are two characteristics that you've learned from your mentors that you say would put you in the position to take the American Royal to another level?
I would say two aspects that I've really reflected on have really shaped the type of culture that I want to build. There's a lot, actually, but two to reflect on from a mentor perspective of people early in my career. The first is how you build an innovative culture. How a leader treats mistakes or things that go wrong is so much to do with the culture, the innovation that will happen in that culture. And what I mean by that is when something goes wrong.
Yes.
Something will always go wrong. Mistakes will be made. And if a leader punishes those mistakes, calls them out, makes a culture to where you're afraid to push the red button. You're afraid to say, this is not working, or I'm in over my head, or just really afraid to expose that mistakes have been made. That can create a culture of people not being transparent. And if you contrast that to a culture of focusing on the learning and focusing on the innovation. So when something goes wrong, to focus on not, well, why didn't you call this person? Or why did this happen? Or did you not? Instead, to say, what can we learn to do differently in the future? Or from my perspective, the biggest learning is to always focus on the possibilities first and then the problems. So if we are in a staff meeting and we're talking about ideas, or someone has a new concept or idea, I am always focused, and actually it's one of our ground rules for our team, to focus on the possibilities of that idea first before we line out all the problems. And those two kind of go hand in hand. So having a culture where you feel like you can push the red button, you can say, I'm in over my head, this did not go well, and you can dissect that and focus on the learning. If you have that happening at the same time that you have a culture where you are listening to everyone's ideas, they're invigorated, they're coming up with new ideas, and you're focusing on the possibilities of it first, then your culture can grow and you can be innovative. You can look at things differently. You can try new things. You can fail fast and you can move on. I've learned that in my career. I've been in cultures that have not been as innovative, where it's been more that you were afraid to push the red button. You were afraid to say you didn't know how to do something. And it's, that's a really important learning for me in my career, and something that I'm incredibly intentional about on a team level, that I want employees to not feel that failure is the final word. Instead, it's let's learn from this. What can we learn from this? And my focus is on the learning and not the failure. And my focus with the learning is about the innovation. What are the possibilities for this, and how could we do this in the future? So that's, I think, probably one of the leadership aspects from a mentor. Another is a little bit more structured. I'm a big fan of Patrick Leoncini. He's a prominent business author. I've read everything that he writes, and there's one book in particular that he writes that I had a mentor probably 15 years ago when I was with the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce, still one of the best bosses I've ever had. But he was very structured in terms of us feeling like we knew what our job was, we had goals, we were all driving towards the same goals. And then when I read that Patrick Leoncini book called The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job, it really hit me. And so it's a learning that every person in their job needs 3 things in order to feel fulfilled. And if they don't have these 3 things, they'll be miserable. So the first is they need to know what their job is. They need to kind of understand, what is it I do every day, and what's my job, and how does that job translate to impacting the mission of this organization? So if I work in accounting and I work at a nonprofit like the American Royal, I need to realize that what my job in accounting allows kids from around the country to get their scholarship payouts, to cultivate their dreams in the future. It's not just about cutting a check or recording a scholarship paid. It's about, if I don't do this, then Fred will not earn his scholarship to go to college when he wouldn't have been able to do that on his own. So it's about, every person needs to know what their job is and why it matters. Every person also needs to know that that their skills are noticed and their unique qualities are being used. And I see that on my team every day. I mean, I really intentionally try to notice what people are doing and their skills and use their skills. Yeah. And so I feel like when people are on a team and feel like they're being noticed and their unique skills are being recognized, that makes a big, big difference. Everyone wants to be helpful. And if they feel like they're invisible and really anybody could do their job and they're not being noticed, that's kind of miserable. And then the third aspect of, I guess, that kind of the 3 Signs of a Miserable Job book, that to me is 3 signs of how you can be fulfilled, is to know what success looks like in your job specifically. That could be a measurement. It could be, you have goals that are tied to the organizational goals, but everyone in their job needs to know what success looks like. And so at the American Royal, we started counting everything. We count a lot of stuff. We count attendance. We do a feedback loop. We do surveys. We try to, and in my job specifically, I am looking at those revenue dashboards. And so from an overall perspective, I had that mentor early on that you need to know what your job is and why it matters, skills to be recognized, and then you need to understand what success looks like in your job individually. And I think if everybody has that in their job, they can feel like they are contributing and they can feel that sense of fulfillment. If they don't have any one of those 3, then it can get a little bit off kilter.
Very informative. The American Royal does so much with education, and then we just saw here recently with some of the natural disasters that we've had across America, that we've also experienced here in the heartland with down in Joplin not too long ago. But Operation Barbecue Relief, that was something that really impressed upon me the caring spirit of the American Royal and how we can get together to celebrate, barbecue and the camaraderie that a lot of teams have and the competition. But also, and I noticed that it wasn't something that was meant and designed to catch the media, But that giving back, how has that spirit been cultivated in this organization, specifically by yourself?
Well, there's several aspects of the American Royal and giving back. First of all, we're a nonprofit. And each year we provide over $1 million a year in scholarships and to support our education programs. So that's just what we do every day. There are a couple of initiatives that are under the umbrella of our events. Some of them are separate entities, but they happen within our event, but they really do make an impact. One example is at the barbecue. Each year, there's an organization that's completely volunteer called Cooker's Care with K. And they have organized to where each year, the barbecue teams, any excess food that they cook, or maybe there's a caterer that has cooked for a big event at the barbecue, they collect all of that food, and then they partner with harvesters and then donate that food to charity. It's generally around 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of food a year.
Wow.
And I'm just very impressed with this completely volunteer organization. They have amazing refrigerated trucks, and they certainly abide by all the health codes and work very proactively with the health departments as well as the food banks, have a very organized infrastructure, and then are able to make that donation. They market to the teams. They come to a lot of the meetings with the barbecue teams. They promote, we'll come by at this time, we'll take anything you have, we need at this temperature, and very, very well-run organization and initiative. And this year was no exception. I think that the donation was over 4,000 pounds of food that ended up in charities in Missouri and Kansas. And so that's one example of how that really helps the charity sector. Certainly, as it relates to natural disasters or any kind of effort where large groups of people are being affected by some kind of disaster, Operation Barbecue Relief will provide food. They'll cook barbecue and cook meals for those natural disasters. Hurricane Harvey, they had over 100 volunteers that went there for 2 to 3 weeks on end and cooked meals. But they were also in Florida just a couple weeks ago, and I think they still have a crew there. So anytime there is some type of large-scale natural disaster, they are there with donated food, with donations, and they are cooking to provide aid to those people in need. And they're part of the barbecue community. The barbecue community enthusiastically supports them and believes in what they're doing.
Yes. One of the comments I'd like to make is when I retired from the Marines and attended business school here at UMKC, one of the professors let me know that the one thing Kansas City has more than any other city in America is the number of nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. So we're a very a big city who's strong with providing those who are not quite as fortunate. And I know that retiring from the Marines, there was several friends I served with who never took the uniform off. And the American Royal has voluntarily stepped up to invite some of these families of the fallen, the widows, their children, to these events. More of a comment, we really truly appreciate what you have done for Heroes United and the families of Kansas and Missouri, and welcoming them to an event that really empowers and inspires them to see, in some cases, something that they've never seen before here in the rodeo. So they really appreciate that, and they feel as though our city's arms are being wrapped around them because of your leadership. So we really thank you.
We're happy to continue that program with the Golden Star families. I think this year we'll have 16 that will attend our rodeo, and it's a quiet but very important part of what we do. I mean, these families aren't looking for recognition or notoriety. They don't want the announcer to say that they're at the rodeo, but we know they're there. And we want to create experiences for them to be together as a family and to do something that's fun and interactive and maybe something they wouldn't see every day. And that's the least we can do to invite them to come to our rodeo.
Yes, thank you. Now, Yourself as the president and CEO, it's often a very difficult, lonely, and often stressful role that you face. Having been a commanding officer in the Marines, you don't always have a confidant inside the organization that you can bounce things off of, although some are very successful at that. What is one of the hardest leadership challenges that you've faced, and how did you navigate through that channel?
I've got a couple. The first is something, I would say it's a perceived leadership challenge, but it's not something that has been an obstacle for me. I'm the first female president of the American Royal, and in many cases, I don't fit a perceived mold of an American Royal president and CEO. A lot of my predecessors were men that had grown up in rodeo or livestock, and wore the black cowboy hats and belt buckles, and that's not me. I grew up doing nonprofit. My whole career, the majority of it is in nonprofit community-based work and in organizations and positions where we were impacting the community. Most of that had an agriculture thread to it. But coming into a position where I'm the youngest president, as well as the only female president in the 118-year history, could be a perceived challenge for me coming into the role. But I would say that it has not created any obstacles for me, just because I fully embraced being authentic to myself in this role and not trying to be somebody that I'm not. I see tremendous opportunity with the American Royal. We impact lives every day, and the mission of the American Royal is what spoke to me. And so coming into the position and meeting so many new people and and having the tradition and heritage of the American Royal makes me so proud to lead this organization. But I will say at first, in the first 6 months, I definitely took people by surprise, because there was, in some cases, an expectation that I should wear a black cowboy hat everywhere I go and a belt buckle, and I should look like and seem like what was in this role before, which was also very, very good. Not to say anything about the predecessors. I didn't fit the profile of someone that had led the organization in the past. We've made a lot of changes at the American Royal, and we've also held to the tradition and heritage of this very important organization. So I'd say that is probably the first perceived challenge that I've had as a leader coming into this. The second is more of an organizational challenge that's hard for me, that I want to work on every single day that I'm here, and that is a mission awareness issue. If you live in Kansas City, or you've been in Kansas City for any length of time, you know the American Royal for the barbecue. And I am so glad that's the case. I am so glad that 50,000 people come to our World Series of Barbecue every year. It's our largest fundraiser, and it's such an important part of what we do. It's very, very important. I want everyone to know about all the other things we do in addition to the barbecue. And that at times is tough for me. Knowing for the community to know and be aware of our scholarship programs and our ag education programs, and that we have Kansas City's only pro-sanctioned rodeo, and that our livestock show is in the top 3 of the United States. And, just that we reach so many kids every year and we cultivate dreams. That's what I want them to know more of. And I want them to know about the barbecue. Believe me, I do. But I want them to also know that we're a nonprofit and that we do all of those things in order to impact the future of agriculture. That to me is something that I want to work on every day that I'm here, is the mission awareness part. When I started at the American Royal, first of all, the team at the American Royal is so great. Just great, great staff. And we've also added some people to the staff. You had talked about CEO task overload. I will say that the culture that I've intentionally created here is one that team is first, individual second. I think if you asked anybody on the American Royal team about my leadership style, they would tell you that I do the work just like they do the work. There are no, I mean, certainly we have positions and everybody knows what their position is, but we all move tables and we all set up events and we all do whatever we can to support each other. That is very, very much a part of the culture here. And it catches people off guard when they first start. I think that in a lot of organizations, leaders do work alongside and make events happen, but it doesn't always happen. So it's something where people feel like if I'm there and I'm doing those things and I'm a part of the team and willing to do anything to help, then they need to be that way too. They need to be willing to do whatever it takes to help the organization as well. I'll tell you the single biggest aspect that I think has changed the culture at the American Royal, and that is that we changed our purpose. So we have a mission, vision, and a purpose. And we went through a process in my first 6 months to develop a common purpose for the team. It's really something we use internally. It's not, I mean, you'll see it on our website, but it's not something that is out front. But I've actually said it a couple times in this podcast, so you'll probably sound familiar when I say it. At the end of the day, at the American Royal, our purpose is to inspire and cultivate dreams. So that's our education programs, those kids coming in from all the states to compete, the barbecue teams. And so from a cultural level, when we are together as a group, we are constantly talking about how are we cultivating dreams for the people that are coming to the American Royal. And that's a motivator. I mean, to come to work every day knowing that you're cultivating dreams, whether that's a scholarship program or these kids that are seeing animals for the first time, or these bull riders coming in from South Dakota trying to win scholarship money, that's a bigger purpose than coming to cut a check for a scholarship recipient. And so we talk about it as a team all the time. We design our events around it. We as a team, we've adopted the Disney model for quality customer service. I've gone through the Institute. We have another staff person. So we have designed all of our events around that purpose. And that is the single biggest motivator from a culture perspective, because everyone on our team knows that what their job is to do is to cultivate dreams for those kids, those adults that are coming to the American Royal. And that has had a really big impact in terms of the CEO task overload. Because if you believe, I'm willing to do anything, I help with anything, and we're all working for a higher cause, then the work sorts out itself. I mean, it's
not so much work.
It's not, because we know what we're doing is really making a difference in people's lives individually. Now, I will tell you, I'm pretty structured in terms of my leadership style. Everybody on our team has annual goals that they've set for themselves. They tie to the overall organizational goals. We have performance metrics. We have KPIs. We have dashboards we look at. We have scorecards we give to our board. We do all that. And that's important. We divide up the work. And it's, by division and all of that, but we all chip in. And so today was a good example. It's Youth Invitational Rodeo Day. But our barbecue manager was, our barbecue manager and our accounting manager and really everybody who's on the American Royal staff, it's all hands on deck. We all have various roles. We all do whatever we need. Yes, we all do whatever it takes to make that event successful so we can cultivate more dreams. So I don't feel CEO task overload because I want to develop my team and give them opportunities. I don't hold on to tasks, and I don't encourage a culture where you hold on to those tasks and you just take ownership of it and don't let anybody else in. That's just not it's not healthy for an organization. So I've not really had that issue at all. It's been more, how do I motivate the team to the higher purpose and higher cause to where they can feel it? Because when you get in people's hearts in terms of what they're doing every day, it's a big motivator and then once you start looking through that lens of cultivating dreams, you come to work and you come to Invitational Youth Rodeo Day and you see evidence of how you're cultivating dreams in kids. Yes. And that's really probably the biggest aspect of motivating the team.
Yes. Lynn, you're speaking about mentorship, and how would you mentor someone that's one day going to succeed your position?
I have leadership team of there's 6 people on the leadership team here in director level positions. We have a very tight group. I'm very transparent with them about what's happening. We're transparent with each other. We have a culture of honesty and trust. And so any one of them I'm developing at any time. I think for people to come out of their comfort zone is good. To have exposure to new opportunities. We have definitely a development culture here. So it's, maybe they are the event manager one day and they oversee the event team, but maybe they have an interest someday going on to the development side. And so proactively working on an individual level, which with each of the leadership team members to understand that their job is not a slot and that it's a pathway to achieving what it is that their career path is. And so I think in order to mentor someone that's a successor, it's a very individual type of mentorship. I lead everyone on my leadership team completely different because they're all different. They're motivated differently. They have different career aspirations. And so in terms of how do I develop them, putting them out of their comfort zone, giving them opportunities. One other aspect I want to mention that's really important to me in my leadership style is that when someone comes to me with an idea, whether it's a leadership team member or really anybody on my team, I really try to not add too much value to that idea. And this happens every day. People come, hey, what about this? Or I've been thinking about it. Why don't we do this? Because we have this innovative culture.
Yes.
And the way I respond to their idea is also indicative of the culture of innovation that I want to achieve. So, Fred, if you come to me with an idea you're really excited about, you say, Lynn, I've got this idea. I've been thinking about the Youth Invitational Rodeo. What if we did this, this, and this? If I come back to you and my first response is, yeah, but what if we did it this way instead? Or what if we added this instead of that? Your ownership of your idea just decreased by 50% in that one sentence. Just that one sentence, me coming back saying, well, what about this? And really what I'm going to add to that idea is probably not going to really improve that idea substantially. And so I have learned to take ideas in and really create a culture where they can feel ownership of that idea. Well, let's try it. Let's do it. Because if I focus on adding value to your idea, it's going to decrease your ownership. And then it just leads to being resentful and, well, maybe I shouldn't give an idea because they didn't like it. And so again, that culture of innovation, as a leader, it's more important how I respond to failures, ideas. That is how I single-handedly respond to failure and ideas is exactly the culture I'm going to get.
Right.
And if I add too much value, if I punish mistakes, those two behaviors in themselves will corrupt a culture. And so as a leader, I'm just always trying to be mindful of not adding too much value, of focusing on learning, of being supportive. And I would say that's important to me, especially at the director level position, is for them to feel ownership. Try new things. Fail fast. It's okay. Focus on the learning. Because then they just really try new things, develop within themselves, and they do it. And then it's actually more fulfilling for me to see them succeed.
Right. No. What would be one characteristic that you would tell someone you are mentoring to avoid as basically a fatal flaw to not do?
A couple things around how you handle when things go wrong. So I think a fatal flaw is to punish mistakes. This didn't go well. How did this happen? Why did you do this? And I think sometimes it may be instinctive that people feel like they have to, be held accountable when things go wrong. Again, how you really handle mistakes and really focusing on the learning really impacts the culture a lot. So I think punishing mistakes is probably one of those fatal things that really will cause employees to hide things from you and not tell you when things are going wrong because they're afraid. They're scared that they may get in trouble. So creating an environment for that leader or for really anybody on the staff to share when things are not going well and feel comfortable that you're going to support them and that you can focus on the learning to how make it better. I think that's important. Every time I start in an organization, I always have employees come to me within the first month to say, Lynn, I just wanted you to know when something's going wrong, I will only bring it to you when I have a solution. Every single organization I have ever worked for, people believe that's a badge of honor. That if they come to their leader, that the leader knows that they're only going to bring them the problems if they've got some solutions. And it's been something that has been just passed on for generations and generations, that people believe that as an employee, they can only go to their supervisor if something's going wrong, if they know how to solve it. And I think that is the worst. It is something every culture I have to always correct. And I'm to the point now when I come into an organization that I say, hey, I just want you to know you can come to me anytime. My door is open. You can text me. You can call me. If something has gone wrong, please don't feel like you can only come to me when you have a solution, because you may not have a solution. And I don't want you to feel pressure that you only can tell me things when you have a way to solve it. Let's solve it together.
Yes. Let's
sit down and solve it together. And I will always ask the employee first what their idea is. This one, well, what ideas, what do you have? How do you think we could solve it? I'm always going to ask them first, but we can solve it together. And I think too many times, if you create that culture where you're rewarded, if you only go to your supervisor when you have a solution, you're going to miss some things. You may let something go on too long to where the person is too afraid to bring it to you. And then something could really go wrong. Whereas if they would have just had a conversation when it first happened, it wouldn't have been a big deal at all. And I will tell you, Fred, every single organization I've worked in, I've had employees within the first month come to see me to say, I just want you to know I'm only going to come to you when I have a solution when something's going wrong. And I always think, no, please don't come to me anytime, really.
Right.
And I just think it's something that has clearly been passed down from generation to generation as something that should be rewarded. And it's not something that I reward.
Right.
It's just not, it's not good for culture.
It's like you mentioned to me that your brother would serve in Marine Corps in aviation. You try not to hold on to a secret if it's something that could have you lose altitude or cause you to impact the earth. You need to communicate.
You need to know what the what is. And then we'll figure out what the solution is.
Right.
But we need to know what the what is first.
Right. Lynn, is there any specific business principle that you hear so many people tout is a key or, a golden rule that you would tell someone that you're mentoring to disregard?
It kind of gets back to one of the ground rules that we have on a team level here at the American Royal is when people come up with ideas to focus on the possibilities first. I think that sometimes in organizations, it can be understood that if someone comes up with an idea or a new program, that it's more important to come up with all the reasons why it won't work first. If Fred comes to me and says, I'd like to launch this new event at the American Royal, it could be a draft horse show. We could bring it back. And if you bring that idea to the team and we come back to you and say, oh, we did that 10 years ago and it lost money and here's all the reasons it didn't work. And, I just don't even know where we'd fit in our calendar and I don't even know if people would come. And then we don't even consider the idea. But what a great opportunity for us to reconsider bringing back a draft horse show. I don't know if we'll do that. We don't have the time for it right now in our calendar, but in the future we might. And I just think it's a fatal flaw that if a leader is rewarding behavior to point out every single reason why that idea won't work first, you're going to lose people.
Yes.
Especially people that are early in their career, because their voice matters. They have a fresh perspective and I want to hear from them. And if they come up with an idea, regardless if it's good or bad, and it's immediately shot down, they will stop coming up with ideas. They will stop raising their hand. And when they stop raising their hand, your culture becomes a stagnant culture and one that won't move forward.
Yes. Every job has personnel who start and end the day somewhat demoralized on a particular day. what is an example of how, as a senior leader, you could empower and encourage an extraordinary team or a junior leader that had an unavoidable performance setback?
I think the most important word is empathy. Is really to just take the time to listen and be empathetic, put yourself in their shoes, and really listen to what they're saying and what they experienced and support them. I think that's the way to handle. We all have those days. We have those days where we've not made an exhibitor happy, or something went as it wasn't planned, and maybe somebody took it out on us, and it's just a tough day. And I think it's important as a leader to take the time to be empathetic, to really listen to what they've experienced and to support them, and to ask, how can I help? That one question is something I probably use every day. How can I help? It's not what can I do, it's how can I help? Because that encourages more active problem solving with that empathy. And so those two aspects are two that are really important in problem solving and helping them feel supported.
Yes. Well, Lynn, we truly appreciate everything that you've done, not just for Heroes United and the Gold Star families of Kansas, Missouri, but what we have seen and we love seeing with the community engagement and teaching young children, offering the scholarships and inspiring them through competition. And one thing I know growing up and then as a Marine is being able to do something that doesn't have a predictable outcome every single time. And when you see those rodeo riders, I mean, riding a 1-ton animal, whether it's for 1 or 8 seconds, I mean, you're never going to get on an animal like that and truly know how it's going to work out. And it's really incredible to see how you have transformed, and you're moving an organization to not just another location, but you're constantly innovating with all the skills and experiences that you've learned over 20 years, and you're really making a huge difference in the lives of the youth and the community across Kansas City and Mid-America. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Very happy to be with you today.
To all my fellow grunts out there who in your youth felt it was your duty to protect us, I salute you. And thanks to the listeners of the Go Commando Show who labor on the farm, who are sweating on the construction site, putting forth your very best at the office. You are making a difference. Support the Go Commando Show in our pursuit of bringing you the highest quality professionals. Infiltrate the website at GoCommandoShow.com, where you can view all of the podcasts and arm your team with incredible deals on health supplements, commando clothing, and equipment. Every time that you get a good deal, it supports the show. What deals? When you purchase anything from the website, Amazon, healthcare supplements, you're covering our 6. And to the ladies on the team, when you outfit yourself in the super sexy threads from Naked Zebra, and yes, I'm talking about in fuego, you are firing the sniper shot for our commandos. How else can you support? It's simple. You smash the follow and subscribe buttons on our social media. That is how you support us bringing great guests to talk about serious subjects, not the mainstream media's fake news. So thank you, and until our next show, stay in the attack and go Commando.